dark, solid state and true timber, as well as
It's noticeable to me that when I use a 4K mouse, it just feels more responsive.
you can go as fast as you can without trying to go on. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're looking at the Truthear Nova. Now I've previously reviewed the Truthear X Chronicle Zero, but unfortunately not the red, which by the way is significantly better in my opinion. So buy the red, not the regular, if you guys are interested in those. Now for a bit of background on Truthear. They are somewhat of a newer Chinese-based IM manufacturer, and they're competing in the cheaper price bracket. Now, what I'm about to tell you guys was told to me by trusted sources, but whether you would like to believe it or not is entirely up to you. So to talk about Truthear, we must first start with Moondrop. I'm sure everyone in the community is aware of Moondrop by now, having made numerous successful products over their years, and really becoming one of those pioneers at getting Chi-Fi into the forefront of the tech and audio community. Now, since they are priced lower, the accessibility is very high, and so that's why we have a lot of people buying them now, and there's a massive audio interest growth. Now, myself was included because of the Blessing to Dusk. As everyone may observe now though, there really isn't much talk and hype around Moondrop anymore. And most of their products have been receiving mediocre reviews, not the most positive, not the most hype. What changed? Well, to summarize, from what I know, the designers and engineers that made Moondrop reach their peak status those few years ago left the company and went to start their own, aka Truthear. The Nova in this case is pretty much designed to just be a variations killer. Now without further ado, let's jump right into the review. Starting with the details, features, and unboxing. The Nova box comes with your anime waifu print on the front. Now I believe this is the bunny girl mascot for Truthear, and they call it Shiroe. She is also present on all the Truthear Zeros and other items. In the case of the Nova, she's in this deified angelic form rather than the modern style shown on the Chrone Zero. Now, I know the community is heavily divided in regards to whether they like anime printing on their packaging or not. Now, some absolutely love it because we're weebs, like myself, I am included, and others absolutely despise it, which is fair. I do think one benefit of this, however, is that you can treat the box itself as a piece of artwork and display it somewhere. So things aren't really going to waste and being tossed out. Now, inside of the square Nova box, you would get greeted with the IEMs, but I've already taken them out. There are multiple tips or multiple sets of different types of ear tips, as well as an accessories box, which inside has a carry pouch, and you would also find the stock cable in there. Now, I personally have not used any of these tips because I use my Divinus Velvets, which are my personal favorites. So the Nova comes in the same beautiful Truthear blue shell. They look absolutely stunning on the camera and even more so in person. The IM cost 150 US dollars, which would approximately be 230 Australian dollars via conversion at the time of this video. Now, given Amazon Australia also stocked Truthear Chrone Zero, I'm sure we'll see the Nova on there in the future. The driver configuration features one dynamic driver for bass and 4 balanced armatures for mids and highs. The stock cable is a sleeved blue and black cable. Matches the color scheme of the Nova. This is definitely one of the best stock cables I've seen with these Chi-Fi IEMs in terms of ergonomics and feel. It's not too thin or thick, and it rarely tangles, which is great. Now the only part I'm concerned of is this heat shrink ear hook area. This part is very rigid and does actually act as a hook. So as much as the rest of the cable doesn't tangle as much, the hook area can get caught on each other. So be careful when you try to untangle the cable. You don't want to apply too much force when you're trying to pull it and yank them apart. If this happens, for example, this really does get stuck. When it comes to picking up microphonics, however, this cable is absolutely trash. Any movement and contact with this cable when you have the IEMs in your ears just generates so much noise, and it's really annoying. As in, you'll hear the cable get caught on something, touch something, tap something via the IEMs through the vibration and then transmission. So you might want to prepare a random cheap replacement cable if that starts bothering you, because it certainly bothers me. Now straight into the sonics aspect. The Nova is a standard Harman-esque Chi-Fi tuning, being extremely similar to Moondrop variations, and it seems that Truthear really are out for blood. However, the Nova does make some changes in different parts of the frequency response, and that creates a bit more of a balanced sound signature. I would say that despite this is still being on the leaner side of things, it's far better than most Harman tuned IEMs are. On a side note, the Nova is definitely designed for low to medium volume listening. If you like electronic music, modern pop, and anything that's a bass emphasis, this is probably not the way to go, but where bass is more a supporting role in some mid-centric or upper region centric tracks, it was actually alright. So J-pop, anime, weeb music, K-pop, things like that are all pretty excellent on the Nova. Straight into bass. The bass on the Nova is surprisingly good in quality. Now, both the sub bass and the mid bass rumble and punch with good impact. I don't need to say much more in this regard. I'm more than satisfied with the quality. The issue lies in quantity, or should I say quantity balance with regards to the rest of the frequency response. Unfortunately with the Nova, even though the upper mids and treble are reduced from what Harman would be, there is still too much of it, relative to the rest of the range anyway. So as a result, I can't get enough bass quantity and volume, because if I was to turn the volume up and hear the bass at a satisfactory level, the upper mids and the treble become far too fatiguing and pierce my ears. As a bass head, this is not ideal. So for those of you that don't like bass, perhaps this is what you're looking for. Good quality, lower quantity. Now mids on the Nova are lean. Before you guys get disappointed, I know we all hate the lean mids. The Nova isn't lean, but it's definitely on the leaner side. Now I find this hard to describe because I would prefer something less lean and a bit warmer or fuller. But at the same time, I've definitely heard others that are even leaner than the Nova, and I think the Nova is somewhere around the bare minimum threshold for listening. The main issue with the Nova lies in that lower mids region, as with anything Harman-esque tuned. There is just a lack of lower mids to provide note weight, and the resulting effect is that some instruments, such as cello, double bass, or experiences during orchestral presentations are quite affected. There just doesn't seem to be that engaging and powerful feel. Male vocals, especially ones with deep, intimate emphasis, lose that warmth and weight, which isn't always ideal either. On the flip side, however, female vocals are crisp, clear, and present. The same can be said about upper harmonic instruments. Acoustic guitars are extremely crisp and satisfying. Violins send shivers down your spine, and this part also ties into the treble region, which we'll talk about now. Treble on the Nova is good. In fact, for an IEM of this price range, I really can't think of anything at all that matches in regards to treble. The treble on the Nova is present, yet not fatiguing. I know I said it was fatiguing in the bass section, but that is when you crank the volume up too much. Now, by non-fatiguing, I mean in the case of the Nova, I don't really feel any treble sibilance or fatigue from it, but rather, the upper mids will cause the fatigue from being too shouty long before the Nova becomes the fatiguing factor. Now, like I said, this only happens when I turn the volume up, and the reason I do that is to compensate for the lack of lower mids and bass. The harmonics given to instruments are excellent. Percussion is also extremely well done and present. You can hear all the cymbals, the chimes, the tingling, the sparkle, and things in the mixes. It's actually impressive that this IEM didn't immediately make me feel like it was low resolution from missing these components. However, where the Nova's treble does lack a little is in that ultra high-end air region. Now, unfortunately, things don't sound very spacious and open, which we can talk about more in the soundstage. But this is from myself comparing Nova to IEMs more than like 10 times the price, which I'm used to. So it's hard for me to keep my expectations in check trying to compare these various different qualities. But I do want to say, all in all, the treble on the Nova is almost flawless for the price range it presents itself at, and I am absolutely blown away. Now moving into technicalities, this is where the Nova truly shines. The bass and lower mids, or tuning overall, isn't necessarily the best, or should I say it doesn't fit my preferences. The technicalities are outstanding. Firstly, we have resolution, which is affected by both the tuning, which we can call perceived resolution, as well as driver capabilities, which can be seen as real resolution, and that's presented in the form of decay, separation, keeping up in busy passages, and etc. The Nova is phenomenal in the perceived resolution department. In fact, this resolution front alone, I would argue, easily matches IEMs many times higher in cost. It's truly crazy. It can pull out all the details from the background of tracks and make them audible, so that you can hear the things you haven't heard in the mix before. Wow, everyone loves it when audiophiles tell you that. On the flip side, however, real resolution on the Nova is toned down a notch, and that's to be expected. Now this partially ties into the other technical aspects, which we can talk about later. Unfortunately, during very busy passages, the Nova does become a little bit congested, so that despite having perceived resolution of, oh, there's something in the background, you can hear that detail, you might not be able to clearly focus on it. Which brings about the question of separation versus soundstage. The separation is actually really good. During the less busy passages, they really do showcase, and each individual sound can be plucked out of the mix to be focused on. The issue with busy passages is that the sound staging on the Nova isn't the biggest, so that when the IEM is resolving well, there isn't enough room for it to breathe, and the sounds become a lot more congested, and therefore it's hard to pick individual things even if it's well separated. Sound staging as a whole on the Nova is decent, but it's nothing special to focus on. Now, all three dimensions, height, depth, and width, are all as you'd expect from an IEM in this price range. Generally speaking, width is actually okay, but the depth and height aspect are the biggest difference makers as you go up or down tiers. In this case, having come to the Nova from high-end IEMs, the Nova really has been sounding a lot smaller. I have no issues with picking out placements of instruments. It's not an imaging problem. You know, I can hear the things on my right, on my left, on the center, on 45 degrees in front of me, but every component just sounds small. In addition, like we mentioned before, the busy passages can get congested, perhaps even more so because the resolution is good, but there's just too many sounds coming from a small space. Now, as for all other technicalities, they're all quite good. Speed and dynamics are good, notes hit and stop when you need them to, the entire presentation is lively, positional audio, or imaging as you guys would like to call it, is also good. Like I said, I can pick things out left, right, center, off to an angle, and it does wonderfully in the gaming aspect of things. So as for comparisons, the most notable here would be variations. So how does the Nova compare? Well, to cut it short, they really are extremely similar, and they trade blows here and there. The main difference is the Nova is significantly cheaper than the variations, and I consider that a huge win for the Nova. I'd have a hard time recommending variations over the Nova in this case, because the Nova is just cheaper. If you want more detailed information, or you want to compare Nova to anything really, just join the Discord and ask me there. Once again, I would like to thank Truthear for sending out this unit of Nova for review. I am, without a doubt, impressed, and I really hope, I pray, that they can release an updated Truthear Nova Red in the future with changed tonality, because if they do that, and it's well done, like the Crinzero Red, I have full confidence that it will dominate the sub 200 USD market, and perhaps even compete above. Until then, see you guys in the next video.